All right, 5 o'clock in and right. We'll officially call the meeting to order. Is the meeting been properly posted and rolled and taken?
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 2, our approval of the minutes. 2.1, our approval of the minutes from the May 6th, 2024 meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of May 6th, 2024.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item number 3, communications. Communications at this time. With that, then we'll move on to item number 4, which is public hearing, review, and possible recommendation regarding Delavan facility. 4.1 is a public hearing on a request to amend an existing group development conditional use permit at 217 South 7th Street, tax parcel XP 189, to allow for an indoor commercial entertainment land use in Unit C within the business local BL zoning district. Again, applicant Delavan facility. We'll go ahead and officially call the public hearing open and start with Steph.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is at 217 South 7th Street. It's an indoor commercial entertainment in the business local zoning district. Your applicant is here today. Yep. Yes. Should we have any questions? So this one's it's just required by our code. It's a pretty simple one, but the applicant's here if you have any questions for it.
Okay. Any questions? I don't know if the petitioner wants to add anything more at this time, Layla. Sure. You're welcome to come up and state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Losing my voice here. So Layla Vasily, owner of Alpha Kramaga, Wisconsin, 217 South 7th Street here in Delavan, 53115, just in case you need the zip as well. So as stated, we are just expanding our space. Obviously, the space that we're at currently, we're luckily and thankfully outgrowing it, hence why we are here today. So,
any questions for the petitioner from commissioners? Not. Any other citizens in attendance here this evening wish to speak on this issue at this time?
speak now or forever hold your peace.
All right, seeing and hearing none, I would go ahead and then close the public hearing and move on to item number 4.2, which is again, consider a request to amend an existing group development conditional use permit at 217 South 7th Street, tax parcel XP 189, to allow for an indoor commercial entertainment land use in Unit C within the business central BC zoning district. Again, applicant Delavan facility. Motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to recommend the common council approval of the 1 conditional use findings listed in the report, and 2 conditional use request for major indoor commercial entertainment located at 217 South 7th Street in the business central BC zoning district, subject to the findings and conditions of approval listed in the report.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 5, the public hearing to review and possible recommendation. The River Church 5.1 is a public hearing on a request to consider a conditional use permit at 910 East Geneva Street, tax parcels XAS 41 and XAS 41. Former Lutheran Memorial Church to allow for an indoor institutional land use within the business local BL zoning district. Applicant the River Church. And at this time, open the public hearing. Start us off.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is at 910 East Geneva Street. This was before you a while ago. It was a church, and we had someone come in and change the zoning, change the comp plan to go into the business local. Now we've got the River Church that would like to use it as a church, and in the business local through a conditional use, indoor institutional is allowed through a conditional use. So the River Church is here today. If you have any specific questions for them, the biggest thing with this item is that there's 2 lots. They're gonna have to combine the 2 lots together. But otherwise, they're pretty much gonna utilize this building the way that it was utilized as a church in the past.
Thank you. Petitioner is in attendance.
Yep.
Yes, Cap.
I have a question, not for T, but. So why aren't we recommending that this be zoned back institution?
To me or to T?
No, to those guys.
Oh. Indoor institutional is already a conditional use in the zoning district, so there's no need to rezone it.
I don't know, this petitioner is in attendance. I don't know if you want to come up to the podium and just state your name and address for the record and entertain if there are any other questions of you on this.
Well, my name is Ed Davis. I'm actually from Elkhorn, but we're talking about the property at 910 East Geneva Street here in Delavan. I think it speaks for itself, but if there are any questions, that's what I'm here for.
Thank you. Will, did you have a question?
2 questions. Number one, is the petitioner purchasing the property?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And the second question, does this include the residential property?
No, but that has been separated, I don't know how long ago. They do have the use of 2 parking spaces in the parking lot, was an easement, from what I understand, but no, it has nothing to do.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the petition? I have one quick question. Not so much regarding, it's regarding the property, but I don't know if you're familiar with, under the Lutheran Memorial Church, there was an agreement. I don't know all the details. It's not necessarily anything that the city, I think, has to be involved with necessarily, but with Delavan Health Services to allow for some parking. Is that, have they reached out or?
We have been made aware of that. We have not talked to them. They said that they would be interested in continuing that. Obviously, we would allow that as long as the city's okay with it.
Right.
It's basic, I think they were looking for 10 parking spaces during the week.
Yeah, and I know that they reached out to me directly, kind of watching and
Yep.
seeing whoever was ultimately purchasing this. Again, it's not anything that's something that
Sure.
the Lutheran Church.
But we are aware of it, yes.
Thank you, I was just asking that, so. Thank you. Any other questions of the petitioner? If not, thank you. Are there any other citizens here in attendance this evening that wish to speak on this issue at this time? Hearing none, then I would go ahead and close the public hearing and move on to item 5.2, which is consider the request for conditional use permit at 910 East Geneva Street, tax parcels XAS 41 and XAS 51, the former Lutheran Memorial Church, to allow for an indoor institutional land use within the business local BL zoning district applicant, the River Church. Motion.
I'll make a motion as written.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Yes, Kevin.
I just would like to understand, what the advantage is of, yet remaining in the business local zoning district, which it was just put back into when there was a planned other transaction versus moving it back into institution. And I don't think that was clear.
Yeah.
I think the answer was, it's clear. I don't think it was clear why staff had a perspective that it wasn't necessary or advantageous to the city.
Thank you, Kevin, for raising that. You're gonna elaborate a little bit?
I can elaborate and you can disagree or agree with me. But basically, we amended the comprehensive plan maybe a year ago to allow for potential commercial use for the property because an institutional user wasn't coming forward. So we amended the comprehensive plan and also amended the zoning at that time because there was someone interested in doing an indoor gym facility. So the business local district allows for a wider range of different uses, so that would markets the property, there were more options for marketing the property. We were kind of surprised to see actually that a church did choose that location. So that would be allowed in the zoning district, so changing the zoning is not required. The city could choose to change the zoning back to institutional. That would be another step. And then if this church would ever not be a church anymore, that property would be left with limited options, kind of in the situation we were in before. So considering all the steps we took to provide more options, more use choices for this property, it didn't make sense to me to go back and undo those steps.
Mayor,
That's good.
thank you. That would have been a better answer the first time the question was answered.
Thanks for giving me 2 chances.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Can I ask a question on that? Sure.
Well, I'll allow it, sure, yeah. Maybe you could come up to, just because we're recording and it comes through a little clearer.
I just wanted to be clear, because we were not asking to have it rezoned.
No.
Just the condition, no, I want to make sure that whatever is discussed or whatever happens, we are still able to use it, and then if we ever do sell a building, the conditional, I'm under the understanding, the conditional use would just go away. Okay.
Any other discussion? Otherwise, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 6, public hearing to review and possible recommendation regarding Brian Pollard. 6.1 is a public hearing on a request to consider a planned infill development amendment to the step 4 precise implementation plan for a portion of the Harbor Club at Lake Lawn subdivision located at 2800 East Geneva Street, lots 28 through 47, and outlots 5, 6, and 7 to amend the eastern portion of the platted area in the manufacturing light ML zoning district with a shoreland protection overlay. Again, applicant Brian Pollard. This time I would open the public hearing and ask staff. So,
Good evening. This is again a precise implementation plan for phase 3 or lot 2 of the Harbor Club development. This was something that the city looked at back in April. They came in for a GDP amendment to allow for 23 single family units rather than the 40 2-family units that they had previously been approved for. So in the GDP, which has already been approved, that's when we look at land use, setbacks, bulk density, any zoning flexibilities at that time. And so those were approved back in April. Now that we're in the PIP step, we're looking at things like site plan refinements, lighting, landscaping, parking, building materials, other details like that. The GDP that we received a few months ago was very detailed, and so we didn't receive a lot of new information in this round. The site layout is very consistent with the GDP that was approved previously. So I just got a few notes to share with all of you. As for parking, parking is accommodated through private garages and driveways. Parking is allowed on street as it is in the other phases of the development, although on-street parking is not permitted on the road leading up to the boat launch. There's just a few street lights proposed. The light fixtures are going to be consistent with the previous phases of the development, and they'll meet the city's dark sky requirements. The proposed building elevations will be the same as in the previous phase, the single family phase of the development. There's no extra site signage proposed at this time. All the signage is already approved or already in place. At the previous meeting, we talked a bit about improvements in the shoreline, and we wanted to see the applicant speak to the DNR about whether they're comfortable with proposed improvements along the lakeshore. DNR has not opposed those improvements, and so we feel that that has been satisfied. At this stage, they are not looking for any new zoning flexibilities. So all the zoning flexibilities that were approved in the GDP stage are carried forward and no additional ones will be added. Staff only includes one condition of approval, which is just a clarification and documentation that we're only approving development or changes on lot 2. And with that, staff recommends approval.
Any questions, Kevin?
I have a couple of technical questions. The public hearing outlines and also the motion outlines 5, 6, 7. The legal description provided says outlot 6, 7. And text says outlot 6, 7. And the maps don't show outlots. So where's outlot 5, outlot 6, and outlot 7? Because it's lot 2, I don't know where those outlots are.
I'd have to look at that. I'm not sure. Offhand, I'm not sure. There were no changes proposed for outlots as part of
I
this.
might not have paid attention, but now it's the pit. And so there's a difference between our motion and the legal description in the packet. And unfortunately, on the packet numbers don't appear. So is outlot 5 included? And where are outlet
Yeah,
5,
sorry.
6, and 7?
I think I can help check with that. I'm Richard with Fairwind Development. I believe if you look at, and I'm gonna have to double check this, if you look at the legal description that was provided by our engineer as it relates to the project. In the original, there was a couple outlots that were common areas where the homes were surrounded.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm reading the legal description.
According to the surveyor, when we asked him, all that land in phase 3, which originally included the original number of lots, I forget which the lot numbers were,
Right.
outlot 5 and outlot 6, those were, what I'm being told, are encompassed in the legal description of what he's provided. I could confirm that with him.
Well, the legal description reads specifically, outlot 6, outlot 7, lots 28 and 47 inclusive in Arbor Club of Lake Lawn, being outlot 1, lot 2, lot 3 of the certified survey map number 4985 being a part of the southeast quadrant, et cetera, et cetera. There's no reference to an outlot 5 in your application.
I'll have to double check that. Again, I was provided by the surveyor, he's not here, but I can double check on lot.
Outlet 5 appears in our motions. And I don't want to hold this up, but
Well, we can certainly get clarification and provide it to staff before we get to the city council meeting. I mean, if the goal here is to.
yeah, I understand. I just, there's 2 things going on related to it, but so the legal description. So there's a difference between what, and I would note that the applicant's petition doesn't include an outlot 5, okay?
I can.
So you don't have to do anything else. I don't think this is your problem.
Well, I think it's our problem. We provide the info, so I want to get it straight for staff before we get to the city council, that we got it straightened out and clear. I'm not a surveyor, so, leaps and bounds will turn me in the corner.
The legal description you guys provided didn't include outlot 5, just so you know.
Right. I'll just double check.
Yeah, okay. Can I ask another question? Of staff, I'm sorry. There's a point in the memo, and you mentioned again in your comments that the DNR has taken no exception, right? Can you tell me specifically what was submitted to the DNR, what contact?
I think I'm gonna turn that one over to Mark. Thank you.
We had multiple emails and phone conversations with the shoreline zoning portions of the DNR along with local wardens as far as what the shoreland and floodplain issues may or may not be within the first 50 feet from the shore property.
Okay, thank you. And then, so since you deferred to you, I'll ask my following question. Who was all of the series of hydrology reports submitted to for approval? Our engineers?
Hydrology as in stormwater,
Yeah, the hydrology.
that is per our subdivision code would go to the city engineers, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yep.
Any other questions, from commissioners?
Well, I have a question for staff. I'm looking at the, you said there's street parking. And I'm looking at the fire truck movements. And are there restrictions for their lots or for their parking? Because according to diagrams, if there's anything parked near those corners, we're not gonna navigate those corners.
There is restrictions on parking on the street. There is.
Okay.
So you gotta keep it, and now, somebody might pull up and park on the street, right, but they're not supposed to park there. And, so there is restrictions in our CCRs.
Okay. Yeah, cause I've been through there with a fire truck, it's tight. I just wanna make sure.
No. Any other questions for staff? Petitioner came up earlier to address any issues. I don't know if the petitioner wants to highlight anything else that's not already in the.
Well, what I might maybe give you is, Andy and I had a whole series of slides and a big presentation and Jackie pretty much took the air out of everything I had to say. She covered everything pretty well. So, I will keep things moving. The only thing I will give you a brief update, I was asked that for, we have 61 lots in phases 1 and 2. Of the 61 lots, 48 are sold. One's being occupied as a model. We have 12 available lots for sale. That's why we're pushing so hard to get to phase 3. And of those 12 that's sold, 12 units sold this year, all of them within the last 2 months. Our sales seem kind to coincide with the summer. When we have nice warm summer months, we get a lot of people out, 50 people a weekend sometimes going to the homes, but we're down to 12 lots. The 23 in phase 3 will be needed here, necessary for us to keep moving. And it's been super successful. It's been going really well. The reception's been great. Sale prices are surprising the daylights out of all of us. So it's really been going well. So if there's any questions you have, I'd be happy to try to answer those.
What's your time frame for completion?
In this sequencing plan, our goal for phase 3 is to start as soon as we can on the dirt work. If you look in that sequencing plan, one of the challenges we have, there's a red outline of the existing boat launch area, the temporary driveway and everything. We're going to, then if you look at sequencing plans, a dark outline dotted area. First thing we're going to do is take the connection that they have on 50, connect that to a new road, regrade the area, move them completely off the site, grade everything this summer. Late summer, early fall will be being water mains, storm sewers, sanitary sewers in. Fall, we'll hope to pave that, have everything paved, if everything, the weather works with us, have everything paved this year.
And the year?
Oh, this year, we're hoping to have all that done this year. And then we have a deadline of next August to remove the existing temporary access. Our hope is that we're in a position to early spring, remove that in the spring and be well ahead of the schedule, because we will need those lots. And as far as build out, we've been selling 30 homes a year. So between what we have now and the 23, we've probably got at the most a couple selling seasons to pretty much sell out and build our way out of it.
Yes, Ken.
Yeah, I have 2 questions for you. The first is, what's your view about the initial marketing price for these single family homes?
Oh,
And I know there's a range because.
Certainly a wide range. If you've looked at the product there,
Right.
homes, they can range from $700,000 on the roads that are adjacent to back up to the road right now. As high as I think we've had sales of 1.8 million
Right.
on the water. if you look at this plan, what we tried to do here is we have a lot of lots on the water, so they're gonna be to the upper end of that price point. What we did differently is we put the launch road in, and then we created a little eyebrow,
Right.
drop-off road that will keep our car movements, people in our homes from moving on the same road as boats flying by, going to launch and stuff. But also those lots back towards the homes, we try to align, so every one of those homes even will get a glimpse, between the homes, they'll have, glimpses of the water itself. So I would expect the lowest price home there to be $100,000 more than what the $750,000 home price is now.
And then my last question is, have you guys, I know you guys are marketing the initial HOA price, for these properties. And inside of that, I'm sure it's your calculation of what the property tax assessment's gonna be for the common elements.
That was actually done by,
And
I don't
do you know what the tax assessment estimate they had for the common elements? Because
it wasn't a lot, but the reason, I think it should be.
So here's my question about that. Because this is all private streets, all private walks. It's all common area yards, right?
Correct.
And so, you guys need to market what you need to market, but when I did my math against what you marketed as your HOA common elements, I came up with maybe 60% of your initial HOA estimate as what I would have guessed the property tax number to be. So,
He'll answer it, but we have the same situation in Symphony Bay, another development,
yeah.
and we didn't put these numbers together ourselves.
No, I know,
We hired a
I'm
company.
just curious about it.
Yeah, I don't know the
because
percentage.
Assessing these common elements that have nothing on them.
Yeah, so so for 30 years, I've been developing in
Right.
Waller County. Traditionally, any common element that you can't build on is taxed at a minimal rate of like $1,000 or something like that. So your tax bill typically is, whatever, $30, $40. Obviously, the homes will be taxed on, the sales price, and they will be taxed accordingly. But the common area, we're anticipating to be, virtually nothing. And
Okay.
if it changed, I would have, I would be meeting with the assessor and try to justify why a vacant piece of property that can't be built on is worth more than,
Right,
that.
and I just want to point out that, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to point out to everybody that one of the consequences of this development is a substantial amount of acreage that would have been, lawn acreage or personal property acreage, will be taxed as has been represented by the developer at practically nothing.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so, and in essence, you're correct. But I also could have just said, hey, we're gonna have 40 homes there and they'll all have lake frontage, and I'd be selling them for roughly the same price. This is not going to diminish the amount of taxes that you guys are, creating. I think if anybody sat up here and said, we're selling homes for $1.8 million, you guys would be, that's awesome. So it's just the way we've structured it. We have a density of probably almost 2.5 to 3 units per acre out there. So on a per acre basis, you're actually getting more density, more tax dollars than you would if we just had 150-foot lots that built, 15 homes. So while you are correct, the common area won't be taxed, the project will have a great impact on taxes for the city of Delavan. So that would be my response to that. Thank you.
Any other questions for the petition? Anyone else in attendance wish to speak regarding this issue at this time? Seeing and hearing none, then I would close the public hearing and move on to item 6.2, which is considered a planned infill development amendment to the step 4 precise implementation plan for a portion of the Powder Club at Lake Lawn subdivision, 2800 East Geneva Street, lots 28 through 47, and outlets 5, 6, and 7 to amend the eastern portion of the platted area in the manufacturing light. and-
Point of order,
Yes.
I know that's a proposed amendment, staff can't tell us whether or not that's what we're supposed to do. And I'd love to act on it.
I guess what we were just talking about here is there opportunity to just approve this with the clarification that we need to work out the exact legal description with the council? Because we'll get Pinnacle Engineer, who's our surveyor. We'll get Pinnacle Engineer, who's our surveyor, to sort that out. So I guess what we request is that even if you want to condition the approval on us sorting out the question on the legal description with our engineer before the council meeting, we're fine with that. We certainly want to make it right too.
The statutory role of the plan commission is to ensure that development takes place legally based upon the legal property descriptions in a city. And this, and I'm gonna repeat one more time, this is not your guys' problem. I know it's your issue of whether or not we approve it tonight. Your guys' description was lot 6 and 7. And outlot 6 and 7, and we have had no map provided to us of what those outlots are even. And outlot 5 was in the description that came from our staff.
Art, did you want to address that?
Perhaps you could make the motion to include the legal description that the applicants provided as part of the motion.
Okay.
With that, I would entertain a motion. I'm care to make a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to recommend the common council approval of the proposed land use at 2800 East Geneva Street, lots 28 through 47 and outlots 6 and 7. Subject to the requirements of the submitted application, subject to the requirements of general development plan PID zoning and the general city of Delavan zoning ordinance, and subject to the conditions as listed in the report and identified by city staff and a planning condition or commission. In addition, to include the legal
Description is submitted by the applicant.
description as submitted by the applicant.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I got one item. On page 35 of our packet, and I'm sorry that we don't, I can't find the packet numbers. And one of the elements that's noted is that this updates all PIP, all GDP terms previously for these parcels. And it says that the GDP, so it says, approval of this GDP will cause a vacation of all prior GDP and PIP approvals for CSM Lot 2, which is basically the lot that describes all of the area of the new houses. The term of the GDP approval shall be 10 years, and I just want to clarify. So it says we're vacating the GDP and the term of GDP approval shall be 10 years. Does that mean that the original GDP term is reset for an additional 10 years if we take this action?
Yeah. So that was something that the applicant requested when they submitted their GDP amendment. That was not something that we discussed at that time. I believe that was an oversight, but we never granted that extension of 10 years at that time. So my interpretation is that we would go with the usual 5-year expiration period for this, unless the plan commission wanted to change that.
But the GDP term is different than the PIP term,
Yes,
right? And this says the term of the GDP approval shall be for 10 years. So we approved the GDP, the original GDP.
of 2020.
Right. So my question is, does this action change the term of that GDP?
Does the PIP approval change the term of the 2020 GDP?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
Then why would that be relevant? To have this included?
This is in the applicant's narrative. So they're requesting the term of the GDP approval to be 10 years, but we never granted that approval.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Any other discussion? Everyone clear on the motion? There's a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item number 7 is public hearing to review and possible recommendation regarding Toronto builders. 7.1 is a public hearing on a request to consider a planned infill development for a step 4 precise implementation plan at 1616 Hobbs Drive, tax parcel XCDB 3-5, located in the manufacturing light ML zoning district to allow for a group development residential apartment complex. Again, applicant Toronto. At this time, I would open the public hearing and let's have Scott start us off.
Hello again. So here's another example of a project where we reviewed a GDP previously, and now we're at the PIP stage. You'll remember that this is for an apartment development on Hobbs Drive, just kind of at the edge of the city's business park. In this case, once again, we're looking at site plan refinements, details such as landscaping, lighting, floor plans, parking, building materials, other things like that. So just as a reminder, this was a project in which the city did approve an amendment to the comprehensive plan, which allowed us to consider multifamily in this location. So once that was completed, the city approved a general development plan for this project in June of last year. That approval included 2 5-story apartment buildings, as well as a 2-story clubhouse that contains 2 apartments. So that would be a total of 146 dwelling units. Includes a mix of 1, 2, and 3 unit, or excuse me, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments throughout both buildings. In the 2 apartment buildings, the top story is actually 2-story loft apartments. At the GDP level, the city approved a reduction in minimum parking requirements, which equated to approximately 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit. In addition to the parking flexibility, the city also granted zoning flexibility for density, lot size, number of dwelling units per building, building height and number of floors, and peripheral setback. At this point, the applicant is not asking for any new zoning flexibility. The site plan and application materials that they submitted is consistent with the general development plan. When the city approved the general development plan last year, there were a number of conditions of approval that came with that. And the applicant has worked with staff to submit a new GDP that reflects all those conditions of approval, and then also ensured that this PIP reflects those conditions of approval as well, so everything is fully consistent. So in reviewing this, we looked at parking. There's 297 total parking spaces provided on the site. That includes underground parking in the two big apartment buildings, surface parking, and then some parking for the golf simulator, which is an amenity provided within the clubhouse building. Across the site, they are meeting the city's requirement for 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit. Staff has concerns, however, that because we have allowed this parking reduction, we do want to see that parking is fully utilized by residents. We don't want to see parking in the neighborhoods or on street. And so, it occurred to us in other projects that we've seen, sometimes developers or property management companies will charge more for underground parking. And we just want to make sure that all of those underground spaces are fully utilized. We don't want to see vacant spaces. And so staff has recommended a condition of approval that one way to address this would be just include at least one underground parking space in the rent to ensure that that's being used and not deterring people from using those spaces. There could be other ways to accomplish this, but that's the suggestion that we came up with. There's a landscaping plan included in the application. Staff is recommending just a little bit more landscaping to screen this project from adjacent development, especially on the west side of the property. There are some existing trees, but those are on the neighboring property. And so we want to ensure that landscape barrier remains in place, whether those trees on the adjacent property go away over time. And so we're recommending some additional landscaping on the western, along the parking lot, on the western property line along next to the parking lot. We'd also like to see a little bit more evergreen street screening along the south property line. So just to screen residents' views of the interstate a little bit more. And then we had a couple minor notes about using shorter or taller plantings at the driveway on Hobbs Drive, just to ensure that landscaping is not within the vision triangle as vehicles are entering the driveway. There are some details about signage within the application. Applicants proposing a monument sign, which we feel is appropriate for this type of development to identify where the project is and kind of provide some branding. Some of the application materials also include on-building signage on the clubhouse building, including a Spire Apartments logo sign, and then also a small sign indicating where the golf simulator parking is. So staff's recommendation is we typically don't allow that type of on-building signage for residential development. And so we prefer to see us stick with just the monument sign and then the small golf simulator parking. Not all the details are provided for signage, so my recommendation is that we not approve signage tonight and just have the applicant come back with a sign permit at a later date when they have proposed location for the monument sign and can update those renderings to reflect staff's recommendations. All of the items that I just walked us through are all included as list of conditions in the staff report, so I won't run through those again. Last thing I'll note here is that the application also includes lighting. That's fully compliant with the dark sky requirements that the city has. Includes LED wall packs and LED light poles within the parking lot and paved areas. Fully compliance with our zoning ordinance and everything looks good there. As I noted, there are other conditions of approval, which I mostly covered. And with that, staff recommends approval and is happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from commissioners for staff? Yes, Kevin.
I have a weird one. There's a requirement for a 9-foot pool fence.
There is
Where did the number 9 come from?
there's a requirement to have your fence, your swimming pool enclosed by a fence.
Got it.
And 9 is the number the applicant suggested.
Okay, so that's what you want.
I think it was a mistake.
We thought it was a mistake, we thought it was 6 foot.
That's what I was
It was
thinking.
very tall.
Okay.
So,
We no longer want a prison fence.
We didn't see any like razor wire.
I have 2 questions. One, I measured the fence in Elkhorn, it was 7 foot today, and I wondered how tall our no bond fence was, but I have a 9 foot. So I think that just you guys need to talk that out.
Did you have any questions?
No,
What was that?
I thought that they addressed every question.
Yeah, it was pretty well detailed in that May 3rd. Right, any other questions for commissioners, for staff? Otherwise, I know the petitioners in the audience, I see, so I don't know if petitioner wants to add anything more besides what's been provided.
Paul Hennincomb, I'm the engineer and surveyor for the developer, Toronto Rebuilders. Again, we went over a lot of this stuff, so we're pretty comfortable. We did have a comment on the 6-foot fence. So that 6 foot, that's fine with us. All the other comments were appropriate and we don't have a problem with any conditions. One issue is on the signs. Toronto has approximately 1,500 units under roof around the areas. And they kind of know what their customers want, so they've had issues with office signs because the office is in the clubhouse, it's not in the units. So instead of putting a little office sign there where it gets blocked by cars and things like that, they thought it was more appropriate to put a sign on under the eave of the one building, the office building, the clubhouse, and it faces the other building, so it's not for advertisement on the street, or it's not to the interstate or to the road. It's for the people driving in so they know where the office is. We thought that seems to work better than putting a little monument sign somewhere where it gets blocked by cars. I know staff had no problem with another monument, the monument sign on the street. I think we had dimensions 8.4, somebody read it as 10, but if 8 foot's the limit on that, 8 foot's fine on that too. But we'd like you to make a request. I know staff recommended we eliminate the one sign for the above the office entrance on the building. And there's a detail in the elevations and the details of the submitted plans for that building if you want to look at it again. But they'd like to keep that so it identifies where the office is at. Besides that, the other conditions were good from staff, and they'd like to get started.
Any questions for the petitioner? Yes, Kevin.
So I want to clarify one thing. I'm looking at the elevation of the clubhouse.
Yeah.
And it says the poolside elevations are blank. The roadside elevation has the sign on it.
Yeah, that's the roadside is the parking, the facing kind of to the east,
So it faces.
the other building.
Okay.
So it's not like it's advertisement for anybody to see, it's more for people pulling there, they know where that office is gonna be. As compared to, there's a little commercial activity with the golf simulator.
Yeah.
So we're trying to separate those two activities. And the manager will be at that, above underneath that sign, so that's why that sign's there. And they'd like you to consider that, even though staff recommended against it, but everything else in staff recommendations was fine. So except for the fence.
Any other questions, from commissioners for the petition? Yes, Matt.
So you said you'd like to get started. What's your time frame for completion?
It takes about 12 to 15 months per building. Falcon Ridge, if you've seen the construction on that, they start the first foundation, they get it going up, and then as soon as they get done with the first foundation, they'll move over to the second foundation and get that. So it's kind of, but from start to finish, in one building, it takes about 15 months, and on the two buildings, you're probably looking at 18 months.
That seems long to me.
Seems long?
Yeah.
A lot of the 140, you're right, 146 units, they gotta finish them all out and stuff. Takes a while, and especially on a small site, so. You know, the ones in East Troy, they did the lofts, they finished, they got done a little quicker. They're probably, under 12 months for those. But those were 3 and they stepped right to 3. The thought was they could start tomorrow because they're at a stage where they can step off the Falcon Ridge and come right over here. So they go there, when it's a lot of work, and then you won't see people not there for the whole time they're building these sites, so.
I've looked a little bit and I've seen quite a few days where there was nobody on site. I saw cranes sitting, not active. I saw a number of things going on. And when I drove past, just looking through, I saw maybe a handful of people just doing nothing.
There may be a handful, sometimes it's supplies and sometimes it's personnel, but that's, they've done, like I said, 1,500 units, that's 30 some buildings. And they do it all, they're the contractor too, they have the forms and they have everything else, so it's not like, they don't do anything else except build these buildings, they don't have any other construction activity, they don't sub out, they don't work as subs for anybody else, it's on their personnel, and they hire subs,
Okay,
but,
because I was pretty sure that
They hire a lot of
they
subs.
hired quite a few subs.
but they don't, for what they do is the foundation and the super, they don't sub that out, they don't build any other buildings for anybody else in general.
Kevin, did you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to point out, I mean, it's more complicated than building a simple. Flat, which we're comfortable with, and, basement and apartment with two floors underground.
I'm very aware of the complications with major construction.
It's, and then these are upper end type buildings, so there's a little more detail.
Any other questions? Anyone else here in attendance that wish to speak on this issue at this time? Seeing and hearing none, with that I would close the public hearing and move on to item 7.2, which is consider a planned infill development for step 4 precise implementation. Plan is 1616 Hobbs Drive, tax parcel XCDD 3-5, located in the manufacturing light ML zoning district to allow for a group development residential apartment complex applicant quantity builders. Care to make a motion?
So moved as read.
You want to add the fence and the signage.
So we'll get to it.
So there's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second, any further discussion? Yes, Kevin.
I'd like to amend my own motion to ensure that the pool fence can be adjusted to the 6 foot suggested by the developer.
There's a motion to amend, is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a motion second, further discussion on that? Did you have more?
No,
Oh, okay.
you need to.
All those clear in the motion? We're gonna vote on the amendment first. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Yes, Captain.
I'd like to make amend my motion to provide for the sign approval on the clubhouse building as presented in the document. Well, there's no second yet.
We'll second it first, then further discussion. So would you?
I wanted to get in before you had a motion and a second.
Well, we should have a motion and a second then first.
Well, we need to vote on the motion, then I'll ask my question.
All right, everyone clear on this amendment? I just would, further discussion is, this is, obviously, this amendment is to address the office signage, but as you pointed out, and it was in our memo, the other signage, we're gonna come back, you're gonna continue to deal with on the monument signage and that stuff, is that
Correct, there's
clear?
no location,
What-
there's no location identified as.
But you're gonna continue to work on that, just so everyone's clear, the amendment is to deal with the office signage. Okay. All those in favor, any other discussion on that amendment? Yes, well,
What is staff's opinion regarding the petitioner's request?
Just, my rationale was ordinarily our sign ordinance does not allow for on-building signage such as that. So this would be, you can approve this through the PIP process, if changes to the signage. So that's possible, but you'd want to approve that tonight because after the PIP is approved, they'd be just subject to the regular signage ordinance. My understanding was reading the elevations that Aspire apartment sign was facing the road. And so that was part of the basis for my not lack of support for it, because I felt that it wasn't necessary. We don't let other multifamily projects do it. So that was my rationale.
Can I take from that you have no objections to the sign where it's going to be placed?
My understanding, they're proposing it to be internal to the site. I don't object to that.
Thank
Thank you for the clarification. All right, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor of the amendment motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Now we'll have a vote on the final motions, or the final motion as amended. Everyone clear on that? All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 8 under business is 8.1 is consider exterior remodeling in the downtown historical overlay district for 231 East Walworth Avenue.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is coming before you because it's in the downtown historical district. It's at 231 East Walworth Avenue. The applicant is in the audience. And they are looking to, if you're able to get the plans from the architect approved, to do a little bit of a remodel on the inside, but what we're here for tonight is for the exterior of what they're looking to do on the outside of the building. Good evening, committee. How are we doing?
Great, good.
Just here, if you guys have any questions in terms of what we're doing.
If you would just state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, my name is Raul Martinez. Very nice to meet you all.
And your address.
Oh, that's right. And our address is 233 and 231 East Walworth Avenue in downtown Delavan.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I see your before picture in the store and your materials, and I'm assuming that barrel type, just the name of it correct, is base mission Spanish barrel tile, that's gonna go behind the sign, is that correct?
That's correct. It's gonna be sort of kind of like an awning, Spanish tile roof type of kind of depiction. They bring some samples here. It's all it is really is just a vinyl. It's something new the industry brought. So this thing connects like this, and generally, I believe potential kind of like point would be like the colors. Well, we want to make sure the colors are actually something that the town or the historic town would be okay with.
And the left side, the rainstorm bronze, that's going where you have the tiles down on the side?
That's correct. That's correct.
And then the brick one top.
That's right.
That's one of the questions I had. Thanks.
All right.
Any other questions? I just, assuming you get approval here in the council, when are you looking at being complete?
So right now, we want to definitely be finished before October. July 4th is kind of one of our busy days, and there's a lot of foot traffic. So talking with their contractor, we don't really want to really start anything heavy, especially with people coming in and out. Also safety reasons as well. So starting after July 4th and absolutely finish before October.
I have one question. What about, so brand new windows, right?
Right.
What's the window frame material?
That is going to be, so those questions are particularly for our contractor, but in essence, it's going to be within the specs of the town.
So we have like a bronze aluminum is a basic requirement, if I recall, which is consistent with
Right.
the top, so.
Any other questions for the petition? Bruce, did you? Oh, I didn't know.
No, I'm good.
Okay, any other questions? I would just point out too, for those that maybe aren't familiar, that this was our first approval for the facade grant program, so I think,
That was a catalyst.
yes, I think it's gonna be really nice when it's all completed and that you took advantage of at least looking into that program. I think it will spur certainly other people to think of it as well once we see a nice project like this completed.
Much appreciated.
All right, any other questions? No? Entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve proposed exterior renovation plans and materials for 231 East Walworth Avenue as submitted by the applicant.
There's a motion, is there a second? Second. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to item 8.2 is consider a request for the conditional use permit at 404 West Walworth Avenue and 116 Walnut Street, tax parcels XWUP 115A and XWP 115B1 to allow for a group development land use and construction of a parking lot within the institutional and residential single-family 3 RS-3 zoning districts applicant FWF construction. As was pointed out, the public hearing was held last month's meeting, and we'll have staff continue this.
Great, so again, this is one that is continued from last month. Staff had a few questions for the applicant. Since then, the applicant has addressed a number of the items that we identified. They have combined the two lots, so that's been completed. They have removed one of the parking spaces in order to meet our pavement setback. They've added additional landscaping on the street frontage on Chalk Street. And then also have agreed to add curbing around the perimeter of the parking lot as required by our code. So staff has no further concerns about this proposed parking lot. The only conditions of approval are to ensure that that landscaping is installed as depicted on the site plan. Know that the lighting does comply with the dark sky ordinance, and that no signage is proposed, which should any be proposed, they would need to come at a later date for a sign permit.
Any questions for staff? Yes, Kevin.
Well, and you guys still think that adding this parking lot here is a positive solution for parking during use times?
I do, yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Brian, I have a question about the landscaping. Parking lot that's going in now is currently all grass. And I think that the property to the north, you're showing some trees along the north border of that parking lot. What are those trees, and are there adequate screening so that the neighbor doesn't have to look at a parking lot?
I'll have the applicant come speak to that item.
And Jim Yamas, HAMMIS, FWO Construction, 8180 Ring Lane, Waterloo, Wisconsin. So I heard your question, but what was it specifically in terms of the, you're talking about the erosion control, or what are you?
No, I'm really more concerned about screening. I know there's some concerns about the traffic in the neighborhood, but this neighbor to the north obviously was looking at a green space before.
Okay.
Now it's gonna become a parking lot. And those trees along the north edge of that property, what is it gonna be, and how well will it screen the parking lot from the neighbor?
Well, we weren't defined specifically the types of trees that were sought to be done in terms of that location, other than to be identified vegetation. However, I think you had mentioned there was a specific tree that we were focused on.
Yeah, it was like 6-foot trees, 4 to 6 feet trees that were all gonna be,
Are you talking like arborvitae or something like that?
yeah.
Correct.
If you're talking about arborvitae, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I actually believe I used that terminology in the response to the very appreciative communication with the staff, where they were asking us very specific questions. I'm not trying to diffuse the question. I know it's very important, but obviously we're a concrete construction and excavation company, so landscaping to us is pushing our foot on a shovel, so. But anyway, any other questions? And I wanted to project that the staff was very cooperative with us in terms of getting a lot of technical information and also clarification relative to particularly the curbing, because we had thought that the curb stops were sufficient, but we understand that the curbing is a requirement, so that's gonna be incorporated relative to the construction process, which obviously will be the beginning part of it.
Any other questions? Thank you. I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion as written.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second, any further discussion? Seeing, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passes. Item 8.3, consider a request for a 2-unit land revision by condominium plan for the duplex property at 309-311 Linden Lane. Yes.
Okay.
Mark?
The next 5 agenda items, the petitioner is here. These are taking existing or in a couple cases proposed duplexes and setting them up as condominiums, 2-unit condominiums on a per parcel basis. So taking a duplex and splitting it out in the middle. Again, the owner applicant is here if you have any questions. This was here, I have in the memo here, they did one building at the corner of Linden and Whispering Pines 3 months ago.
Yeah.
So this is the same, basically a carbon copy, and the declarations, I believe we attached those to the 5th one, they're the same, it's the exact same declarations for each one of these 5 properties.
Any questions for staff? Yes.
I just, can you clarify the confusion about the street number? There's a reference in here that these are, in the applicant words, these are on.
They do have a revised, the initial condominium plat that came in, or the declarations had the numbers reversed, so that the unit, I'll call it unit A and unit B, would have the wrong house numbers in correlation to which way the street's going.
But I thought they were originally identified as on Whispering Pine.
Oh, it's the street name. Okay.
Yeah.
There, 3 of the ones are on Betzer, and yes, they do have submitted new plats that have, for working on getting some plats that have the correct name in front. The surveyor wrote it down as Whispering Pines, and it's actually on Betzer.
Okay. Thank you.
He was close.
It was in that.
Yep.
I was confused.
Any other questions for staff or? Entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to recommend move to recommend common council approval of proposed 2-unit land revision by condominium plat as presented for the duplex property at 309-311 Linden Lane, subject to the city attorney's review of the declarations.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second, any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion passes. Item 8.4 is consider a request for a 2-unit land redivision by condominium plat for the duplex property at 313 to 315 Linden Lane. Is there a motion?
I move to recommend common council approval of the proposed 2-unit land redivision by condominium plat as presented for the duplex property at 313 and 315 Linden Lane, subject to the city attorney's review of the declaration.
Second. There's a motion and a second, any further discussion? Seeing, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion passes. Item 8.5 is consider a request for a 2-unit land redivision by condominium plat for the duplex property at 216 30218 Betzer Road. Is there a motion?
Make a motion as written.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second, any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item 8.6 is consider a request for a 2-unit land redivision by condominium plat for the duplex property at 222-224 Betzer Road. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item 8.7 is consider a request for a 2-unit land redivision by condominium plat for the duplex property at 306-308 Betzer Road. Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item number 9, building inspector's report. Team?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so as you can tell earlier from Rick's comment at Harbor Club, things have been moving pretty well over there, and it seems like every weekend they sell 1 or 2 homes. Right now, I believe they have, from the beginning of the year, 11 sold over there. US Shelters, properties that they have in Arbor Ridge, they sound pretty well also. And then the other main area, behind the high school on Tamarack and Evergreen, pretty much all those lots are, there might be like 1 or 2 vacant lots that are for sale, but most of them are bought by the by the builders, and all of them are saying that they're gonna be bringing in some plants, so it's gonna be a lot going on this summer. KSP with the property across from Lake Lawn with the boat storage, they are in compliance. The arborvitae's have been installed. I'm not sure if you happen to see that, but they are in compliance with the city of Delavan's zoning ordinance now. So, and the only other thing I can think of to let you know is in front of the Walmart, East Geneva Street, where the Sonoma Cellars used to be. There's going to be a doctor's office that's going to be going into the old Sonoma Cellars. And a couple doors down from there, they're getting ready to pull some permits, is a new hot wings place called Wing Snob. So.
How much of Delavan Holdings, how much of that large unit ended up finished? The Kunis property.
Oh.
Now, with the sign in front of it, it says Delavan Holdings.
Yeah.
So it was originally 2 whole bays, open, hundreds of cubes.
Right, so now it's the on the far, that'd be the far east side, there's like the 2 units, there used to be Staples. I don't know, was it the sporting goods store that used to be next to it? So those 2 units are now the Kunis office, I believe. I've heard rumors that they're gonna be maybe coming to expand further, but right now they haven't expanded.
So but they completed the build out, we approved?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Questions? Yes, well,
The occupancy permits over at the Lake Lawn Development. You are issuing those?
Yes, for Harbor Club?
Yeah.
Yes.
How many approximately?
I would have to double check, but I bet you we've got at least 25 to 30 of them that are complete. Pretty much most of phase 1 is completed in Harbor Club.
And we have issued?
Yeah, and I believe from talking to most of the people out there, I actually don't believe that anyone's living out there full time. I think they're all second homes. There might be maybe 1 person, but for the most part, they're second or third homes. So.
any other? Yeah. Matt?
Can you give us an update on the status of the temporary sign downtown habitations?
Yeah, so I did look at that sign, so I believe the old sign that was there, is still there. And then it is a banner sign that's on top of that sign. So if you were to touch it, it is hard, but it actually is just a banner sign that's in front of that.
At one point, you said that could be up 90 days ago.
I think it's 120. Yeah.
Where are we in that time frame?
I'd have to double check. I know it hasn't been 100. But I have some emails going back and forth with that owner, so I do have documentation as to when that sign went up.
While you're at it, can you take an assessment of the square footage that's being utilized inside the store?
I can do that also. Yep.
What location we talking about?
Temptations. The satellite store.
Any other questions for Teak? Thanks for the update, and if there's no additional business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So,
There's a motion and a second, all in favor of adjournment, signify by stating aye.
I.
Adjourned. Thanks, everyone.